Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. Today, we're going to be talking about Ahlim in comparison to other Dragoons and kind of examine what that 5 cost difference really means between an upgraded MR unit and a UR unit. A quick shout out to Elgite, who's the one who originally asked this question. Can you make a Dragoon comparison video for Ahlim? Like compare her with Victora, who is only a 5 cost difference. Elgite, you've been a long time member of the channel, and I actually think this was a very interesting question. So what I did is I went into the WoTV Calc Builder. If you're not familiar with this tool, WoTV Calc does have a building function which enables you to build hypothetical builds of different units. What I did is I plugged in a lot of the primary Dragoons and Spear Wielders in the game, mostly Dragoons. I didn't do like Glaciella, for example. I made an MR version, so we use Lorenzo. I could have used Shadowlynx, but I feel like Lorenzo is the only like MR primary Dragoon besides Ahlim, so I wanted to use him as a baseline. Even though I know a lot of people run like Shadowlynx sub Dragoon, I think Lorenzo is just going to be a better baseline. And then of course we have some of the other Dragoon units that we're comparing her to. Things we're going to be looking at mostly, since Ahlim is primarily a main job Dragoon, she has all the jump abilities, she has Dragon Skin. We're going to be comparing her to other Dragoon units. Now, Ahlim as a unit is a very powerful sub-double gunner unit, and I recognize that. But for the sake of this video, we are going to be comparing her to other Dragoon units, and we're going to be looking at her Dragoon toolkit, because who doesn't love a fucking Dragoon? So, let's see what we got here. First off, just to show you kind of what I generically built with her, I did throw on Kane's Spear here, I threw on Ribbon, I threw on Ziza's Bells, I threw on a Titan, and then I did throw on Running Through Snowfields. I put Tune Up and Evasion Up as her passives. The passives are going to be one of the things that we're going to see really hold Ahlim back compared to some of the UR units. One of the other things we're going to see is that VCs actually hold her back as well. Looking at her attack, it does come in at a pretty hefty 753. Where she's really going to shine, though, is her agility in at 92, her luck at 279, so she's basically an evasive Dragoon, you can consider. Her attack modification here, which will be Lightning and Pierce, comes to a total of 85, so almost all of her attacks are going to have an 85% modification, and that's with a 40% defense penetration as well. So keep that in mind as we are going to go look at other units. Probably the unit that people would compare her to would be Victora. And so let's pull Victora up here. And the first thing you're going to notice is Victora has an attack of 935, almost 200 more. And that's almost exclusively because of the self-sacrifice passive. So if you're looking for someone who can potentially one-shot, Victora is going to be that girl. Now there's another thing you have to consider with UR units versus MR units as well, and that is that UR units do have limit breaks. Particularly in Victora's case, her limit break is very powerful. The capability to charm your opponent is absolutely crazy. Another thing you have to consider is that Victora has activation time minus 200 built into her kit, right? That's going to be, I believe, part of her mastery ability. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure, yep, it's part of her mastery ability. So her jumps are going to be a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, and compared to the 85 modification of Ahlim, Victora is going to have a 105% modification. Now, keep in mind, there's no defense penetration for Victora, and also keep in mind that the reason this modification is so high is because she's using an Ice Lance, which does give a substantial bonus to ice attack. Now, things get interesting if maybe you're a new player, maybe you don't have access to Ice Lance, where this modification could just be at 75, which is actually lower than Ahlim's, with less defense penetration but more attack. So if you're a newer player, it's potentially easier to build Ahlim than it is to build Victora if you don't have access to the Ice Lance +5. Their agility is relatively similar, 91 versus Ahlim's 92 agility. Overall, though, if you have the equipment, Victora is going to eke out most likely a victory, unless you're going up against units who have substantial defense. And it would have to be substantial defense, right? It would have to be like, we're talking units with upwards of like 50 defense if possible. So that's going to be really kind of the difference between Ahlim and Victora. Let's go ahead and take a look at an MR unit now, and let's talk about Lorenzo in comparison. Now, a lot of people don't know much about Lorenzo. Lorenzo is a Dragoon, Lancer Time Mage. We just threw on Kane's Spear. We put on Deadly Mastery and Pierce Mastery because he is going to be more of a critical hit rate build kind of mess. And the first thing you're going to notice is that he has 85 Pierce attack off the bat. That's pretty powerful, but let's compare his base stats. An agility of 69 compared to the 90 plus agility that we saw from Ahlim, that we saw from Victora, and an attack of 698 is actually really close to Ahlim's attack. So besides the defense piercing, Lorenzo is going to have a little bit more crit, right? And particularly if you are sub, not Dragoon, but if you're sub Lancer, you will have access to Sharp Spear, which means you could potentially build a 100 plus crit rate build with Lorenzo, but I don't think anybody's going to be doing that anytime soon. Lorenzo, I mean, overall, I think you can see the difference between an MR and Ahlim, and I think where you really see it is in the agility, right, and the attack. I mean, it's just night and day, right? You like a 70 agility unit compared to a 92 agility unit is so substantially different that it's hard to even compare. So I would actually say that Ahlim is probably a little bit stronger than maybe like Salir in comparison to other mages, just because the gap is so large between Ahlim and Lorenzo, whereas the gap between like Salir as a healing unit and another healing unit like maybe Grace or, you know, I don't know, one of the other MR healers, not so much, even though Salir kind of does both. So I think overall Ahlim is, you know, pretty good. Let's compare her to some more UR units though, because I think it's interesting, and I also think it sheds some perspective on her as a unit. Let's talk about Kane, and Kane is a unit who has 1070 attack. That is a huge boatload of attack. 77 agility though, so again, substantially slower than Ahlim. So Ahlim even has some things going on over Kane. In addition, Kane only has 80% pierce attack on him. He does have 20% defense penetration though, which does make him pretty powerful. The main difference here between Kane and Ahlim is going to be the attack and the agility, along with the defense penetration. Now, there are of course other things like Kane's limit break, and of course the modifiers on Kane's attacks, since they are not the traditional Dragoon attacks. Also, we need to factor into the account that Kane also has a unique Pierce debuff attack as well. Overall though, if you're looking at them blow for blow, the only real difference between Kane and Ahlim is really coming down to the attack power. I mean, if you're wanting a high power attacking unit, I mean, Ahlim is going to be pretty powerful. What I'm actually interested in comparing here, and you can see I actually have the Bale version on him, so his agility is actually lower just a bit. I'm actually going to compare him with the Running Over Snowfields card instead of the Demon Wall card here. And if you look, it did lower his attack just a bit, and it actually put his modification to 70. The reason I wanted to do this is because not everybody has access to the Demon Wall card with Kane, and this actually would probably put Ahlim and Kane on pretty even playing fields, with the exception of Kane having access to his limit break and Kane having different style attacks. Now, do I think Ahlim is stronger than Kane? Probably not in most situations, right? Because if you're considering sub jobs, Kayn is going to have access to things like Courage and Sentinel. But do I think it's interesting to consider and look at? Absolutely. Now there's one last Dragoon that I wanted to compare Ahlim to, and that was Christmas Mashery. Now, Christmas Mashery is kind of a pain in the ass unit, and I know everybody kind of feels that way about her. Taking a look at her kit down here, I did end up putting Viking lore and HP up on her. I could have done something like Unyielding Protection. We did throw Reflex on, and of course the Titan and the Running Through Snowfields. Her Pierce attack comes in at 70, which again is very similar, right, to Kayn actually. And it's less than Ahlim's modification because Ahlim does have that lightning modification and she has the Pierce modification. Now, Christmas Mashery has 10 defense penetration. Christmas Mashery only has 867 attack and 79 agility. So the difference between Christmas Mashery and Ahlim is only about 130 attack or so and 12 agility, and Ahlim does have more modifiers, so Ahlim in most situations will probably deal about the same. Well, actually you can see Christmas Mashery does have the 15 fire here. Sorry, missed that. So Christmas Mashery will do a little bit more damage. I still think Ahlim might deal more damage though with the defense penetration. It's going to be really similar. And it's also going to depend on what buffs Christmas Mashery and Ahlim use as well. Christmas Mashery does have higher critical hit rate, so we might see in the broad range of things more damage. I feel like Christmas Mashery in general is just a little bit more tankier, but it really shows you how close Ahlim is to sort of surpassing the UR Dragoons that are out there. Now, I think some things that are also interesting to consider is that we are going to be getting the 9S for free, right, for everybody. And we're going to be getting 9S's Spear as a farmable weapon. Now, compared to the Spear, the Wind Spear that you can put on Ahlim, if you put the 9S Spear, you are going to gain +5 lightning modification. It is +10, but you have to consider you're losing +5 from the Wind Spear because the Wind Spear is +20, whereas the 9S Spear is going to be +15 Pierce attack and +10 lightning attack. So you're going to be seeing in the future potentially maybe some 9S and Ahlim shenanigans. And I'm really excited for that because the moment that you start stacking mastery abilities, Ahlim's value exceeds that of the UR Dragoons pretty powerfully, right? So let's assume for a second that all of a sudden 9S is being paired with any of these Dragoon units in the future. Suddenly, Ahlim's value of +15 lightning attack and 9S's value of +15 lightning attack essentially adds an additional +15 lightning attack in comparison to all the other units, which actually would make Ahlim the best probably Dragoon unit, with the exception of maybe Victora for Limit Break. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how, you know, once you start factoring in like the HP as well and the other sources of defense penetration that we're going to have, I think Ahlim has a very interesting place in the future, and I think she will actually be a little bit more relevant than Salir even, since Salir, you know, maybe with Salir's second mastery ability, we'll start seeing like Ahlim Salir 9S, or we'll see like Ahlim, you know, Sid. I mean, it'll be interesting. I'm super excited for it. Anyway, Elguy, I hope I answered your questions in these videos. If there are other videos like this you guys want me to do, make sure you throw it down in the comment section. Particularly if you've been a long time viewer, I'll probably at least give it a look, pay some attention, and give you a reply. As always, everyone, if you do want to support me, make sure you use my affiliate link. Go to dig.gs/coins. We have updated dig.gs/offer as well. So if you do want to support me, you can go to that link. And of course, swing by our Discord, come say hi to me, and have a great rest of your night, everybody.